On a winter night in the year 39 AD, Rome felt frozen. Not because of the weather, but because every noble family understood what this night could mean. Somewhere in the city, a daughter would be taken from her home. Imagine being 14 years old, already dressed for sleep, believing the street outside your window is quiet and safe. Then you hear the sound of heavy footsteps moving closer, echoing through the stone streets. From childhood, families were taught that a summons from the emperor was an honor. No one explained that such a call could arrive without warning. No one said that imperial guards could step across a family's doorway as if it no longer belonged to them. And no one ever explained the meaning of the lantern they carried, covered in red cloth, which they placed in front of certain doors. Moments later, a mother would softly speak her daughter's name, as if even a whisper might bring misfortune. A father would attempt a calm smile he could not truly hold. And in those moments, the truth every noble household feared became clear. The imperial palace did not invite daughters. It claimed them. If it seems that Flavia's story begins here, it does not. What awaited her inside the palace would make this moment seem gentle by comparison. This was not a rumor passed in secret. This was the night a hidden imperial ritual began, one so deeply buried that Rome erased nearly all record of it. The first to face this truth is Flavia. Remember her, because everything that follows explains the man who will decide her fate. To understand how a human being could change so completely, becoming someone capable of reshaping an entire empire, we must return to his origins. We must look at the family that raised him and the experiences that shaped him long before Rome learned to fear his rule. Caligula was not born into chaos. He was born into honor. He was the son of Germanicus, Rome's most admired general, a man whose presence inspired loyalty and pride wherever he went. By all expectations, the boy should have inherited strength, discipline, and respect. Instead, his early life followed a different path. His childhood was not spent in peaceful villas or schools of learning. It unfolded at the edge of the empire, inside military camps filled with strict order, constant movement, and unspoken danger. He learned to walk among seasoned soldiers, the ground trembling beneath their steps. The troops adored their commander's young son, dressed in a child-sized version of military boots. They called him Caligula, meaning little boot. It was a nickname given with affection, though history would later attach a far heavier meaning to it. Even then, his world taught him a harsh lesson. Power was not something you were simply given. It was something you took and defended. And once taken, it demanded no apology. This belief took root early, forming the first fracture in his character. That fracture widened with the sudden and mysterious death of his father, Germanicus. Almost overnight, the child once admired by Rome became a risk to those in control. He watched as his mother and brothers were removed from public life, isolated and eliminated one after another. It was no invading enemy, no battlefield defeat, only the quiet decisions of Emperor Tiberius. Then came Capri. From a distance, Rome believed Tiberius had withdrawn there in comfort. In reality, the island became a place ruled by fear and suspicion. Caligula, still very young, was forced to live beside the man responsible for the destruction of his family. Capri was not a sanctuary. It was a confined world ruled by constant watchfulness. For 6 long years, Caligula survived under an emperor who trusted no one and ruled through uncertainty. There, he learned another lesson, darker than the first. Survival required silence. To stay alive, you had to appear loyal to the person you feared most. He learned to hide emotion, to suppress anger, and to present obedience even when none existed. Outwardly, he complied. Inwardly, something hardened. When Emperor Tiberius died in 37 AD and the Senate named Caligula emperor at the age of 24, Rome celebrated. People believed a new era had begun. The son of Germanicus was seen as a restorer, someone who would undo years of fear and secrecy. And at first, he seemed to fulfill that hope. Prisoners were released. Records of surveillance were destroyed. Taxes were reduced. Public events returned, and money flowed freely through the city. Rome believed it had been rescued. But the man who would one day decide Flavia's fate had not yet fully emerged. That change came after a severe illness struck near the end of his first year as emperor. He hovered between life and death, and when he recovered, something within him had changed. The careful restraint he learned on Capri was no longer necessary. Standing above the city on the Palatine Hill, surrounded by praise and obedience, Caligula understood something deeply unsettling. At the height of power, there was no authority above him. The admiration of the crowds and the silence of the Senate did not steady him. Instead, they removed limits. What had once been generosity became unpredictability. What had once been justice became personal will. Slowly, a new idea took shape in his thinking. Members of Rome's noblest families were no longer seen as individuals with lives of their own. They became tools of authority. And somewhere in the city, Flavia's household heard the knock that no family wished to answer. This change did not arrive suddenly. It moved through Rome quietly, like an illness spreading unseen. It passed beneath marble floors and behind guarded doors, reaching those who believed their status protected them. Refusal was not an option. It began simply with a visit. The emperor's messengers arrived without weapons, and that alone made them far more frightening. The messengers carried scrolls sealed with imperial purple, a color that symbolized absolute authority. Inside those scrolls was a command no family could refuse. They were ordered to send a daughter, not just any daughter, but the one considered most suitable by appearance, lineage, and political value. Officially, this was presented as an honor. In reality, families understood what it meant. Refusing the emperor was considered disloyalty. Obeying meant surrendering their child to forces beyond their control. The girls were taken to a secluded section of the palace, a place Caligula gave a deliberately misleading name, the Garden of Venus. When Flavia crossed into this space, she still believed she had some influence over her fate. That belief would not last long. At first, the surroundings appeared beautiful. The walls were decorated with colored marble, the rooms furnished with fine fabrics, and the air filled with costly scents. Servants moved quietly, attending to every detail. Many of the young women believed they had been chosen for a respected role within the palace. Gradually, they understood the truth. The beauty of the place was only a surface. Beneath it was a system designed to remove choice, independence, and identity. What this place truly existed for revealed itself slowly. And the most unsettling reality was that this was only the beginning. The garden did not overwhelm its inhabitants all at once. It worked over time, allowing them to fully understand what was being taken from them. The jewelry they were required to wear was not a sign of favor. It marked ownership. Heavy ornaments served as constant reminders that their lives were no longer their own. The clothing they were given offered no comfort or protection. It existed to reinforce their loss of privacy and control. The first thing taken from them was their names. Names represented identity, and identity represented resistance. Caligula replaced them with numbers or dismissive labels. With each change, the distance between who they were and who they were becoming grew wider. The most effective tool used against them was not appearance or threat. It was uncertainty. They were never told what would happen next or when. Days or weeks could pass in silence. Every sound in the corridors filled them with dread. Sleep became difficult. Rest offered no relief. By the time the emperor acknowledged them directly, the emotional strain had already done its work. They were no longer treated as participants in court life, but as displays during formal gatherings. They stood before Rome's most powerful men, not as guests, but as symbols of imperial control. Caligula observed them openly, speaking as though they were objects to be evaluated. What made this moment more devastating was the silence of those who should have defended them. Male relatives and allies sat nearby, unable to intervene. Any sign of objection could endanger both themselves and the young woman involved. That silence reinforced the emperor's authority. It made clear that no one present was beyond his reach. What followed was not disorder, but routine. The palace operated on strict rules, rehearsed and repeated. Every movement was controlled. This was not impulsive behavior. It was deliberate structure, designed to demonstrate power. Flavia, standing beneath the palace lights, came to understand something crucial. The emperor no longer saw her as a person. She was an example, a tool through which he expressed dominance. Flavia was the daughter of a respected consul. When she first entered the Garden of Venus, she believed she might serve in ceremonies or stand beside the emperor in public roles. In the early days, she was treated with attention and given valuable gifts. The atmosphere seemed calm, even reassuring. This was intentional. It lowered her defenses. It created trust where none should have existed. When that illusion finally collapsed, Flavia learned the central rule of the palace. Resistance was impossible against a man who believed himself beyond human limits. Caligula controlled people not only through fear, but through unpredictability. He shifted between approval and rejection, kindness and distance. This instability confused those around him. Over time, certainty disappeared. Hope and fear blended together, leaving those under his control unable to clearly understand their own situation. Comfort and fear became intertwined. The same authority that caused the suffering also positioned itself as the only source of relief. This created a dependency designed to eliminate any possibility of escape. Caligula did not stop there. He deliberately destroyed unity among the young women. Flavia tried to fade into the background, but within the Garden of Venus, being unnoticed could be just as dangerous as standing out. The emperor openly compared them, deciding who pleased him, who disappointed him, and who would receive favor or hardship. He encouraged rivalry until survival depended on competing against one another rather than standing together. Once unity was gone, the emperor's control became complete. When he lost interest in someone, she was not released. Instead, she was quietly transferred within elite circles, involving senators and generals who governed Rome publicly while participating in these hidden arrangements privately. Caligula ensured their involvement so that their silence became mandatory. Shared wrongdoing bound them to him more tightly than fear alone. Families were ordered to show gratitude. Some parents were forced to host public celebrations after losing their daughter's freedom. They praised honor while concealing devastation. Within the Palatine, gratitude became another form of despair. Surveillance intensified. Guards, servants, and informants were everywhere. No space was private. Any sign of distress could be reported as disobedience. Inside the Garden of Venus, individuality was slowly erased. What remained was exhaustion, fear, and the constant awareness of approaching footsteps. By